Hello and welcome to a very exciting section, desired state configuration. This is one of the most revolutionary aspects of PowerShell. This started with PowerShell 4 and really it has blown up. Everybody's interested in it, everybody wants to use it, and I'm going to show you how to use it. In this section, we're going to learn about PowerShell desired state configuration. We'll start with an overview, and then we're going to create and apply our first configuration. Then we're going to find and use DSC modules and resources. And finally, we're going to use Azure Automation as a ready-made pull server. If that doesn't make sense to you right now, don't worry. I'm going to get into that right away when we talk about the overview of PowerShell desired state configuration. Welcome to the video overview of PowerShell desired state configuration. In this video, we're going to talk about the concepts of desired state configuration, or DSC. I'll tell you about the technical requirements and what you're going to need to get started. And then we're going to define and discuss the terminology to make sure that we can speak the common language that was required for DSC. What is desired state configuration? Well, PowerShell's DSC is a really powerful way of scripting. In fact, it's a declarative model of scripting. Instead of you telling PowerShell exactly every step of the way to get from point A to point B, you just describe perfectly what point B is, and PowerShell takes care of it for you. And the biggest benefit of this is that we get to define our configuration, our infrastructure, and our servers as code. Desired state configuration can really be achieved through three simple steps. First, we create the configuration. We just describe the way that we want our server to look and behave. Then we compile the configuration into a MOF file. That MOF file is what the DSC engine, that local configuration manager, uses to interpret, break down that code, and turn it into PowerShell scripts. And next, we deploy the configuration. If that sounds really easy, well, guess what? It is, and that's one of the great things about desired state configuration. While it might seem complicated at first because it's taking these extra steps of compiling into a MOF file and then deploying the configuration, instead of just writing a PS1 script and executing it, it gets so much easier when you're just describing how you want that end state to look. So what are we going to need to run PowerShell DSC? Thankfully, we don't need a whole lot. Well, PowerShell comes with it. So for managing Windows systems with DSC, you're going to need modern version of PowerShell. That's Windows PowerShell 4.0, 5.0, or 5.1. PowerShell DSC is also available for Linux. Currently, there's limited support for PowerShell Core. So PowerShell Core does have some of the commands, but many of them are still reporting errors at the time of this recording. Desired State Configuration Core has been announced and is currently being developed by Microsoft. Desired State Configuration Core is going to, just like PowerShell Core will be the future of Windows PowerShell, Desired State Configuration Core will be the future of Windows PowerShell DSC and PowerShell DSC for Linux. Both of those products will go forward as DSC Core. For this section, I'm going to be switching out of PowerShell Core and back into Windows PowerShell, just so I have all of the functionality of DSC and you can get the best experience. If you are using DSC for Windows systems, I recommend that you do the same. Before we jump in and create a configuration and apply it to our system, I want to make sure that you understand a few terms. I'm going to keep it simple, I promise. I'm not going to overload you, but a few things are going to be really beneficial for you. The first is the term configuration. When I say configuration, I'm talking about writing out a description of what I want the system to be configured as. This configuration will be a PS1 file, but it's very similar to a function in the way that it uses a keyword at the beginning. Instead of calling it a function, we're going to call it configuration. Once we run that configuration, just in the same way that you would run a function, we run that configuration and it creates a MOF file. And that MOF file is what we will use to deploy those settings to a server. The way that we can deploy that to a server is one of two ways. We can either push, which is really just going to shove it down the throat of that server through the network, and that happens only when we invoke it. We can manually push, but it does not continually update. The other mode is a pull mode, or pull server. This is where we can install the configurations and modules on one server or on a central location, and the nodes we are using DSC to configure will reach out, look for any updates to the configurations or modules, and pull them down and install them for us. Finally, at a little more granular level, we're going to use resources, which is any specific setting or an item that can be configured through DSC. And resources are bundled together into a module. So we will typically have a built-in module that has resources in it, or we will find additional resources that are available in a downloadable module. That module does have to be installed on any system being configured. So if we find a third-party module or even an extra module from Microsoft for working with SQL Server or SharePoint or anything like that, we will download that module and we'll need to have that module installed on the system. That's a little preview here. The pull mode makes that so easy because it will be one place where we can put those modules, and then when they're needed, the systems will pull it down automatically.